Just because a racetrack is lost doesn't mean it can't endure. With the right amount of dedication and community support, even a dormant track can be turned into something special. 70 miles northeast of Atlanta, in the tiny town of Baldwin, that's exactly what has happened at Banks County Speedway. Its story seemed to end more than 50 years ago, but a special local family would not let this track go and has breathed new life into this hallowed ground. This is the story of Banks County Speedway and how this lost track of Georgia was found.
We are at the Banks County Speedway near Baldwin, Georgia.
All right, now for the folks at home, where is Baldwin, Georgia?
It is in northeast Georgia, about 75, maybe 80 miles northeast of Atlanta.
Okay.
And this place is the epitome of a classic southern short track built in the mid-50s, raced through the 60s. Now, before we can really talk about the Banks County Speedway, we have to talk about Tommy Irvin, because without Tommy Irvin, there is no racetrack. Tommy Irvin was a native of the area, born in neighboring Habersham County.
Okay.
He joined the Army at the age of 18, served in World War II. He was in the infantry. He was a sergeant, earned a Bronze Star. Like a lot of people of that generation, had seen the world, had seen some things, and needed a little excitement when he came home. And he found that excitement through his friends, Swain Pritchett and Pee Wee Dooley. It started out with running some moonshine, running a little white liquor.
As it often does around these parts.
That's very true. And from that, it led to racing. Tommy ran car number 18, and Swain ran car number 17, and they raced all over. They went to Daytona, they raced at Lakewood in Atlanta, they'd go up and run the tracks up around in South Carolina, things like that. They also got interested in this new racing organization at the end of 1947 called NASCAR.
Oh.
And Tommy Irvin was the 18th man to obtain a NASCAR license.
Oh, holy cow. One of the originals.
That's it. Tommy continues racing, and he earns a championship at the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. He's racing at Dallas. He's racing down in Macon. You'd go and race at Macon and then rush back to, run at the Peach Bowl in Atlanta.
Okay.
He is the champion of the Southern Racing Enterprises in 1954. His biggest moment for him as a race car driver came in 1955, and that was again at Lakewood Speedway in Atlanta. Tommy was driving a car for Chester Barron out of nearby Cornelia, Georgia, and that car, man, was hooked up. Tommy could pass him low, he could pass him high. At one point he comes into the pits and Chester tells him, if you keep this up, you're going to blow the car up. And Tommy said, I want to lap the field. Just once, I want to lap the field.
Yeah.
He goes out there and that's exactly what he does. In a 100-lap, 100-mile race, he wins by a full lap over the field.
Holy moly.
Gets a big trophy, gets an even bigger paycheck. The first thing he did was he made a trip to Chicago to buy a Grand Core engine. That was an engine, a racing engine built by Andy Granatelli.
Wait a minute, the STP guy?
That's it.
Like Richard Petty, Mario Andretti?
That's it, absolutely, same guy. Granatelli offers him a ride driving one of his cars at Soldiers Field over the summer. So, why not? He stays up there and he goes to, runs a couple of races, and Granatelli asks him, well, what do you think of my cars? And Tommy Irvin tells Andy Granatelli, they're terrible. These things are awful. I'm taking my engine and I'm going back to Georgia.
Oh, goodness.
Now, the second thing that he did was he decided to build himself a racetrack. They started a little corporation with his brother Jackie and with another person who just happened to have grading equipment, Sheldon Gailey, and cut out this quarter-mile racetrack. And track opens in 1956.
So this place gets going in 1956.
Right.
We've established that Tommy Irvin, this famous race car driver, with all these NASCAR connections.
Yeah.
Like, how did that affect being able to get drivers up here?
It was just absolutely terrific because some of the drivers he got out here were some really big names, especially in the South. We're talking about people like Gober Sotheby,
Okay.
Ed Samples, all three of the Flock brothers. Curtis Turner came out here for a match race in the early 60s.
Wow.
Just all of these names. Then you have the drivers that he brought out of Tennessee, guys like Friday Hassler, Harold Fryer, Freddie Fryer, Tootle Estes. Then you had Tootle, it comes back again.
Always comes back to Tootle.
And there's two drivers, you know, we absolutely have to mention. One is Fireball Roberts.
Oh, like NASCAR's first big superstar.
Like, yes, absolutely, the man, Fireball Roberts, came out here. Now, whether he came out here and raced, honestly, I don't know. I know that he came out and was a part of what was going on out here for Mr. Tommy. And then also, Ralph Earnhardt came and competed here in the 60s. Dale Sr.'s dad, Dale Jr.'s grandfather, one of the legendary racers out of the Carolinas, for him to make the trip down here just shows the kind of draw that Tommy Irvin had with this little quarter-mile racetrack.
You have all these folks coming far and wide, but you also have some guys, like right here in this area, who turn into their own legends.
You have two absolute short track, dirt track racing legends that their roots are right here in this red clay. One is Bud Lunsford, a National Dirt Racing Hall of Famer, Georgia Racing Hall of Famer. When he unloaded that number 49, he was the man to beat. You have another legend, Buck Simmons, started out here as a kid driving the water truck. He, for all the world, wanted to drive a race car. So they got him one. He's sitting in there at 12 years of age.
Oh, jeez.
The all-time feature winner in dirt track racing, Buck Simmons. And this is where he started, right here on this track.
This little quarter mile. We just did Athens Speedway.
Yeah.
Which had a pretty long lifespan. This one was only around for a little over 15 years.
Right.
Of course, it just kind of coincides with what many people consider to be the golden age of auto racing.
When they opened this track in 1956, they ran on Wednesday nights. At that time, the Braves were still in Milwaukee. If you lived out here, you had to drive quite a way to get to a movie theater. And television, you know, was in its infancy. They would have racing all over the place. You'd be at Toccoa one night, and then you'd be at the Peach Bowl another night, and then you'd be up at Anderson one night, and then you'd be at Banks County on Wednesday night.
Probably best that we weren't around then. We would have spent way too much time at racetracks.
I don't know that I'd still be married. I don't know that my wife would put up with that.
Heard that. So there was a stretch in this track's history where it was an asphalt speedway. How did that come to be?
For 2 years, this track ran as a paved facility. And it was a situation where they had been fighting weather and they had a lot of rainouts, I think in '64, and they had enough. They said, well, let's pave the track. But it didn't really work out. Some of the drivers that usually came in didn't want to, they couldn't get the hang of asphalt, and they couldn't get all of the asphalt drivers to come up from the Peach Bowl. And the fans, without getting those local heroes in here, they kind of stayed away a bit.
Yeah.
So
as we established, there's a lot of places they can go to
that's
see
it, you know, especially at that point. So after 2 years of trying, they plowed up the asphalt and went back to dirt.
What was the racing like?
It was a racy track. It wasn't necessarily a fast track. But you saw a lot of good side-by-side competition here. As long as we're down here on the backstretch and looking at turn 3. Had a driver, came down the backstretch full tilt, gets down, he misjudges the corner.
Oh no.
And he goes through the fence.
Worse.
Through the fence, and then he hits the bottom of that tin, the sheet metal, and it bends up and he goes under it.
Oh, that's not stopping a race car.
No. So he catches a gear, whips the car around, thinking I'll just drive right back through and get back in the race. That sheet metal had slammed back down over the hole. He couldn't get back through, so he had to drive all the way through the parking lot, weave through all the cars, get back here to the back gate to get back in the race.
Oh man. So I mean, he checked in, but he couldn't check
He
out.
couldn't check out.
And you know, all the cars, trucks, farm equipment that they had acquired over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And you look around and you can see them. There's still, a bunch of them are still here.
Want to buy a Chevy? I can make you a really good deal
Yeah.
on a really nice vintage Chevy here.
There is so much rusted out American iron and metal and steel around us.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to believe that it's all just sitting here.
Odds are they were picked for parts.
Right.
And whatever was left that couldn't be used just stayed here, and now it's part of the story of this place now.
Absolutely. And the vibes are strong. Yeah.
Sure you don't want to buy a car?
I don't know, man. I don't think I got anywhere to park it. What about Tommy Irvin, the promoter? How did it work for him out here?
You can look and see some of the promotions, the ads that they ran. There's one great one that has all of the drivers' names listed,
Yeah.
Including Bobby Whitmire, because first time I saw it, Bobby has a huge blow-up of it on his wall at his house. He's so proud of that.
Tommy knew that the fans came to the places to see the faces.
That's it. You don't come just to see the cars, you come to see the people, the personalities and the people behind the wheel, just as important, if not more important, than the cars themselves.
Yeah.
And he also learned a few different tricks. They had a lot of really neat promotions out here over the years.
They had Joey Chitwood with the Thrill Seekers.
Wow.
Would come down here, and those guys, they were all yellow cars. And I think there were 3 of them. And they would turn them up on their side and go on 2 wheels all the way around the track. There was a local guy named Boyd Jackson that about every 2 or 3 weeks, Dad would pay him $100 to turn a car over down the straightaway.
Paul Anderson, the world's strongest man,
Yeah.
from up in Toccoa, and he would come out here.
He would come and do a lot of demonstrations right here, lifting up kids on a board. You know, there'd be 8 or 10 kids, and he would lift them up, and entertain the crowd. Everybody was, clapping and enjoyed it.
But you had another guy who hardly anybody knew he was here.
Oh, go on.
That was Baseball Hall of Famer Ty Cobb.
Wow.
Ty Cobb lived in the area. His nephew was one of the scorers, and Ty would come out to the races, and they'd let him park his car over here outside of Turn 4 and watch the races from his car. But he was here most race weekends until he passed away.
Wow.
Dad didn't want it to announce that Ty Cobb was here because somebody would want his autograph, and he really didn't care to associate with people. He just wanted to sit out there by himself and watch the race and maybe have a little drink while he was.
Now this track is also famous as being a first for, what we would consider to be the ubiquitous tire maker for short track racing.
Yeah, Bobby Whitmire was a great driver, a great friend to Bud Lunsford, who we've talked about. And he and Bud went all over barnstorming, all over the state and all over the Carolinas. But Bobby had heard about this new tire company out of Indiana called Hoosier.
Huh.
And so he was hearing good things about them, so he ordered a set of those Hoosier tires. They bolt them on, and he goes out for hot laps, and his crew is waving him in. Get in here, get in here. And he comes in and goes, what is it? He says, you're kicking up a rooster tail all the way down the straightaways.
Oh, wow.
There was so much grip in those tires. And he goes out there in the feature, and Bud can't touch him. He pulls Bud by a straightaway and wins the feature. But I'll guarantee you the next week, Bud Lunsford and any of the other hot shoes had Hoosier tires on those cars.
And now you go to almost any dirt track in this state, heck, any short track around.
Yeah.
And you're going to see Hoosier tires.
That's
on
it.
This car.
It is synonymous with short track racing, especially asphalt racing.
And it all started right here.
Right here, Banks County Speedway.
How about that? I see a lot of old cars that are 50, 60 years old, and it's a reminder as we climb the banking here in turn 3.
Yep.
This place has been closed now for over 50 years.
Yep.
What happened?
What happened was there was a racing accident at a drag strip in Covington, Georgia, the Yellow River Dragway.
Okay.
And a car got out of control, went off in the crowd, and killed 11 spectators.
Oh, geez.
Worst spectator involved auto racing incident in the history of this country. This was in 1969. Next year, state legislature immediately started looking at what they could do to help regulate this. So, started out, you had to have $1 million liability insurance.
Okay.
And along with that, you couldn't have wooden guardrails anymore.
That's
and
gonna be
you
a problem
couldn't
here.
have wooden grandstands anymore. And you had to have a proper catch fence and all of these other things that you had to do.
That this racetrack did not have.
No, and a lot of racetracks in the state didn't have this decision by the state, which was the right decision. Make no mistake about that. But it put a lot of racetracks out of business.
Really, the requirement to provide insurance and fire protection, ambulance, and all of that, there just wasn't any money left.
He made the decision, that was it. He told me after the last night here, actually forgot to turn off the lights.
Really?
And came out a couple of weeks later and realized the lights were still on.
But no one was home.
But no one was home. I came out here in 2007 and it was all grown up. Trees, bushes, growth, all these cars, but you could still see everything. I thought, well, it's a time capsule, but nothing will ever come of it. And then came 2014. And Bobby Irvin, who is Tommy's son, and the Irvin family, realized we've got something out here that nobody else has. We have a racetrack that's historic, and we have people who want to celebrate that history. You had the Athens Speedway reunion going on.
Yep.
You had the Lakewood Speedway reunion, the Peach Bowl reunion every year.
Donald Brooks invited me to come down to the Athens Speedway reunion, and I was so impressed, and I got to see a lot of the old cars and a lot of the old drivers that I had known as a kid and grew up with, and I thought, well, I've got that old racetrack up there that it's just a shame for it to be growing up in woods, and that's just a great thing to keep the history of racing alive. And so I and a bunch of friends volunteered to come up, and we cut trees and bulldozered and rebuilt the concession stand and built it back where we could just have some fun.
He's rebuilt the tower, the ticket booth, the flag stand, and all of a sudden, you've got a vintage 50s racetrack. In 2015, they held the first Banks County Speedway reunion, and it was amazing. There were guys out here that were like, we need to go race on this.
No kidding.
And it's amazing what the Irvin family's done, and it's all done as a tribute to Tommy Irvin.
So, you look out at all of this, and you look at a lot of lost racetracks of this area and even, around the country. Not a lot of them are preserved like this.
No.
And I can't help but think of, Tommy Irving's family, mainly Bobby and his family.
Tommy was inducted into the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame in 2009. And he passed away December of 2010. This is a monument. This is a statue to the family patriarch. It's amazing what the Irvin family's done, and it's all done as a tribute to Tommy Irvin. I hope other people will get a chance to come out here and experience this. If you're a race fan, you need to know where you came from, and man, this is it. It doesn't get any deeper in the roots than this.
You come out here, and it's like, man, we're like a couple tractors away, and some infrastructure. It feels like you could do something here.
I don't know if you want to use the word relic or you want to use the word survivor.
Yeah.
But this track endures. Does this track have a future? Absolutely, but not necessarily as a modern racing facility. What I could foresee happening with this, you know, Georgia has blown up with the movie industry.
Right.
And can you imagine the value of an authentic 50s to 60s style racetrack to a movie production set in that point in time? And being able to come down here and fix it the way that they want it for their movie, and then when they're done, they'll put everything the way that it needs to be for the Irvin family.
Yeah.
I hope people get a chance to come out and see it. It's an insect trapped in amber. It is a piece of history right here in front of you.
It's pretty special.
It's absolutely special.